Hi everybody, welcome back to Political Excess. Today I've got the last of the competitive deep dives for you. This is the U.S. Senate election in Georgia, so let's not waste any time and let's get on Ballotpedia and start with a little bit of background. The incumbent senator is Democrat Raphael Warnock, and he is running for re-election to a full term. 2 years ago, Raphael Warnock and Republican Kelly Loeffler advanced to a runoff in January of the following year, and Warnock won that election with 51% of the vote, which was a 2-point margin. Prior to serving in the Senate, Warnock has a background as a pastor. His opponent on the Republican side is Herschel Walker. Walker played for the University of Georgia, where he won the Heisman Trophy. He went on to play in the NFL, and he has no prior political experience. So let's take a look at their primaries. Well, Raphael Warnock didn't really have much of a primary. He was essentially unopposed and won with 96% of the vote. Herschel Walker also didn't really have a competitive primary, and he won with 68% of the vote. There will also be a Libertarian candidate on the ballot as well. Let's go down here and see how this race is rated. Well, all three of the sites, Cook Political Report, Inside Elections, and Larry Sabato, have it as a toss-up. The last rating at the beginning of the month for me was Tilt Republican. Since then, there have been more scandals involving Herschel Walker. There's a lot of salacious stuff about that going around. I don't particularly care about the details. I just want to focus on how it might affect this race. And Walker did dip in the polls after that, but since then he's kind of made a comeback and is at least even with Raphael Warnock. This is going to be one of the closest races in the country. This race is crucial for both parties if they want to control the Senate. Herschel Walker did get endorsed early on by Donald Trump, so he's been assumed to be the nominee for a long time. So the Democrats have had plenty of time to formulate their attack, and we could see there's been a lot of personal stuff that's come out about Herschel Walker and his past, right in the midst of the campaign season. Everything's been on the table for abortion and mental illness, domestic violence. On the other side, Raphael Warnock has had some domestic violence allegations. He's also been regarded as a little bit too mild, plus the national environment is against him right now, and Herschel Walker is supposed to be the hometown hero, given his background in football. So there's a lot going on in this race, and it's very, very close to say the least. We'll talk more about that later on, but right now let's go down and take a look at the campaign finance. And we can see Raphael Warnock has massively outraised Herschel Walker. And to me, that indicates this is the most crucial seat for the Democrats to hold. It's not really a surprise. They very narrowly won it less than a couple of years ago in a runoff. Georgia had long been regarded as a redder state, but it has definitely shifted toward the left over the last few years. So if they do lose this seat, it's very likely that the Republicans will control the Senate. Let's move on here and take a look at how the counties are trending at a presidential level. I did take a look at this on my governor's deep dive, so take a look at that if you'd like. So I'll move a little quicker through here, but I'll focus on the top line numbers here, and that is 53.8% of the population lives in 30 counties that voted for Joe Biden 2 years ago, and 46.2% live in 129 counties that voted for Donald Trump last time. So let's move down and take a look at some of these counties. I'll just focus this time mainly on the Atlanta suburbs. Cobb County and Gwinnett County, those are the two counties that definitely have lurched to the left over the last couple of presidential cycles, and that's the main reason the Republicans are really struggling to win statewide as of late. The other county on the south end of Atlanta suburbs is Henry, and that's another one that has also clearly shifted toward the Democrats. Another blue county is Chatham. That's where Savannah is. We can see that has ticked a few points to the left as well. That's another area Republicans are losing ground. As for the red counties, there are a lot of them, and a lot of them are very deep red, easily voting for Donald Trump last time by over 70% of the vote. Even this county here supported him with 90% of the vote, which is really astonishing. These red counties are scattered all over. Plenty in southern Georgia, plenty in northern Georgia. There's a few lighter red counties. Those are counties that flipped and voted for Donald Trump the first time after previously voting for Obama, and then they stuck with Trump 2 years ago. The only problem with most of these counties is there's just not a lot of people that live in them. And there's a few other counties and cities I could point out, but I will just say that Georgia has clearly trended toward the Democrats and right now is a very highly competitive state. And let's move on and take a look at the county map when Raphael Warnock won his first election less than 2 years ago. And this map is actually very similar to that presidential map we just looked at. The margins are very similar, and that does make sense, of course. That was right after the presidential election. But with runoffs, voter turnout does tend to drop off. But in that particular election, Democrats were highly motivated as they were coming off a Joe Biden win, and winning this seat would have effectively given them control of the U.S. Senate. Some of the Republican turnout may have dropped off a little bit more than expected, as some of them may have been demotivated to turn out after Donald Trump came up just short. So let's move on to YouTube and take a look at what they've got on their channels. Here is Raphael Warnock's channel. Actually, he doesn't have anything on here over the last month, but he does have a bunch of ads. Take a look at these if you'd like. And here is Herschel Walker's channel. He's got some campaign events, some interviews, and some ads of his own. And how about their official campaign websites? Here is Raphael Warnock's site. If you want to see where he stands on the issues, check out his store or donate to his campaign. And here is Herschel Walker's site. If you want to read about him, see where he stands on the issues, or support his campaign. And how about any debates? Well, there was one debate. The link will be down below in the description if you have not yet watched it. I did watch it. It was nice to see that it happened. I think expectations for Herschel Walker were very low, and he did better than expected. So I'm not sure how much that's going to affect the race, but it did give voters an unfiltered look at Herschel Walker as well as Raphael Warnock if they were unfamiliar with him. I believe there was supposed to be a second debate, but Herschel Walker declined to show up to that one. So it would have been nice to get 2 or 3 debates, but we got the one, and I guess that is better than none. So let's move over to Wikipedia and take a look at the endorsements. Here's Raphael Warnock's. He has the Barack Obama endorsement. And he has some other elected officials from Georgia and a bunch of organizations, but I am surprised there's not more listed on here, actually. And here are Herschel Walker's endorsements. He, of course, has that Donald Trump endorsement. He has the Brian Kemp endorsement, and a bunch of other ones you would probably expect to see. And that takes us down to the polling. And right now, in the aggregate on Real Clear Politics, Herschel Walker is ahead 0.6%, 46.8 to 46.2. On 538, Raphael Warnock is ahead 1.6%, 46.9 to 45.3. Let's take a look at the individual polls. The most recent polls are Republican-aligned pollsters, but they do show Herschel Walker with a slight advantage. The polls a little bit farther back are very close. Some of them are tied. Some of them have Raphael Warnock in the lead. This really has been a back-and-forth race. The big question is how much of the vote is that Libertarian candidate going to take away? Because if none of these candidates reaches 50% of the vote, it will head to a runoff in December. I'm not a fan of having runoffs after the general election at all, but it's possible we could be in for a repeat of what happened less than 2 years ago, where control of the U.S. Senate was hanging on the winner of that runoff. Let's go back to that runoff and take a look at how the polling compares. So Raphael Warnock, remember he did have 51% of the vote. Kelly Loeffler had 49%. In the aggregate, they did show Warnock with a slight edge, and that's more or less what happened. Some of these polls did overestimate Kelly Loeffler. A couple other ones did overestimate Raphael Warnock, but for the most part, it was a close race, and the polls were not horribly off in the aggregate. And finally, let's get on predicted and take a look at the market. This has Herschel Walker favored to win with 62 cents. Raphael Warnock is at 40 cents. If we go down here and take a look at the graph, we can see it's been back and forth. It seems like no one can maintain a lead whatsoever, and every new poll that comes out seems to really affect this market. So what is the conclusion with this race? Well, I think it's essentially a coin flip, but you could make a case either way for both of these candidates winning this election. Herschel Walker, he's controversial. He's gotten a lot of attention for some of his past issues. I'm not sure how much his football career helps him. It probably would help him on the margins. I think the better thing going for him is the national environment. Inflation and crime, those issues are not helping Raphael Warnock at all. His incumbency for less than 2 years is probably helping him on the margins as well. Herschel Walker is definitely an outsider. Some people view that as a strength. Some people view him as unprepared and unqualified. The Democratic establishment is going huge on Raphael Warnock. They're breaking out the big guns. They do not want to lose the seat whatsoever, especially to someone like Herschel Walker. All the standard issues are going to be at play here with abortion and immigration, but of course they're all going to take a bit of a back seat to the economy and inflation. I'd rather not see this race go to a runoff. I think it would just be too chaotic, and I want somebody to win it outright. Whatever scandals have come up for Herschel Walker, they don't really seem to have much staying power. He seems to go down for a little bit in the polls, and then he's right back up to at least even. And Raphael Warnock doesn't seem terribly popular himself. Most of the polls showed him around the mid-40s for most of the campaign, so there are some undecided voters out there. Some swing voters might be turned off by Herschel Walker, and I think some Republicans might be a little hesitant to support him given some of the news about him. But at the end of the day, they're probably going to come home and support him. Is that going to be enough to put him over the top? That, of course, is the question. And right now, I would say he probably wins by under a half a point, and I don't think anybody is going to win this race by more than 2 points. There's still more than a week to go. New polls are going to come out. New scandals could come out. This race is basically up in the air, and I could see it going either way. But anyway, that is a deep dive into this U.S. Senate election in Georgia. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about this race? Will it go to a runoff? And what do you think the margin will be? Let me know down below. And if you enjoy this channel, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.